Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Growing the Money. My name is Rich Lennon. We talk every morning from 8 to 8:10. In this case, like 8:04 to 8:14-ish. Yeah, tried to go streaming on multiple channels today, and I hit a Gen X thing where I just couldn't figure out the technology at the last moment. So here we are. Today we're going to talk about borrowers falling out. Their contracts are falling out. This is happening on a regular basis. What it means, what we should do, and what should our plan be as our economy goes through a little kerfluffle. It's not often you get the chance to say kerfluffle. Okay, let's talk about it a little bit. So I'm seeing a couple things in the market right now, and this one is becoming more and more common. I saw it in the last maybe month, but man, it just happened like twice in the last couple of days, and I just think it's worth talking about at this point. And that is that a lot of the buyers are getting nervous, and they're getting nervous because of what they're seeing in the stock market. Now, we can talk briefly about what is going on and causing in the stock market because my objective is to make you just a little bit more aware than the average person at the water cooler so that you have the opportunity to talk about it in an authoritative way. This is a great way to attract not only borrowers, but lazy money. And that's why we do it. So the 10-year is what is really happening to the stock market that is really influencing us. When the stock market goes down, traditionally the yield on the 10-year should go lower, but in fact the 10-year is going higher. It has pulled back a little bit. It was as high as like 4.5. It had the biggest intraday swing earlier this month. And so that's a sign that the market is really in flux and doesn't know where to do. Now, that 10-year is going, the yield is going up on the 10-year because we are seeing countries like Canada and China and Japan that are selling their Treasury of the U.S. 10-year bonds on the market, which is creating the yield to go up. We really needed the yield to go down. And so that opposite is happening. This is akin to nation states throwing a temper tantrum and not appreciating what our administration is doing, fair or foul. That's not for me to decide, but that is what's happening, and we're being affected by it as real estate investors because the market was way down and then it recovered some. And if you've been paying attention, it's kind of back down, although maybe up yesterday, but who cares? But it's back down, and we're going through this turmoil thing. And who is feeling that turmoil thing? It's your buyers. And so when the buyers get nervous, the buyers fall out. Now, my opinion of contracts is they're almost unenforceable. I know that's not a popular opinion. I'm not an attorney, probably shouldn't listen to me. But when the buyer simply doesn't want to buy the house, it's almost impossible to make them buy the house. Now, their contract says that they can only get out through a loan, or the inspection period's probably already passed. But we're seeing multiple times and instances now, because I have a fair amount of loans here in my local market, so I do get a really good look at what's going on. And what I'm seeing is that those buyers are nervous and they're making up excuses to get out of the contracts. And so the houses that were already delayed coming to the market are being more delayed. Okay, so the borrower is in the spot where they're likely in default, or they're coming up on their default, but through a combination of, hey, it's almost impossible to get along with the city and counties in terms of permits. And now, if you've got buyers pulling out of the market, what it means for us lenders is that our money sits out on the street longer. I need to take a sip. It's okay for you as a lender if your borrower is keeping your money moving. This is not something that you should panic over. And also, I don't think it's something that you should start adding a whole bunch of fees for. I think that the cost of acquisition for a client is hard. And whether it's financial, of like I'm doing marketing to get to the spot where people will come borrow money from you, or it's your time, I'm going to a lot of meetups to meet clients that will come work for you. These are the opportunities that you have to work with your borrowers that will create long-term relationships. And this is how you go from a client relationship to a financial friends relationship, where that borrower begins to depend on you and trust you, and they're going to know that you're going to back them up. This is good for you, and I encourage you to not get panicky in these situations. I would encourage you to make sure that the greed gland is not pumping away, right? Because we have these big external factors that are affecting our borrowers. And we can either give them a reprieve, we can either give them some stability, or we can yank the rug out from underneath them. I hope if you watch my podcast and you watch me, you know my opinion on this situation. Our job is to protect those borrowers. We are the voice of reason. We understand that we are the money that can be out. The money can be out for a long period of time. Because what are you going to do if you take that money back? If you take that money back, all you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go redeploy your money. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And the other one, I said it before, but I'll just say it again before I move on. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I guess it makes sense financially, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me for long term if you're charging all those extra points. And I know some of you hit me up when I say those kind of things and tell me how wrong I am, but that's okay. Everybody gets to run their business the way they want, and everybody gets to lend their money the way they want. Okay, something else I've seen in the market recently that I wanted to mention because I don't know, maybe people don't know that this is a no no and they've been doing it and they have not intentionally been doing no nos, but here we are. So when you're lending money, often it comes with a renovation budget as well. So maybe they're borrowing $100,000 for the purchase of the property, and then they're going to borrow $50,000 for those renovations. When you get that $50,000 as an escrow, you have to treat it as an escrow. And here's a couple things that you need to do. You need to make sure that escrow goes into a separate account. I would encourage you to only take the payoff, not the payoff, the money back from the attorney directly into the escrow. I wouldn't even take it into my normal operations account and then switch it over to my escrow. I want to firmly establish my escrow and how I behave with my escrow. I have seen, or I believe that I have seen, would be a better way to put it, some people that have started to lend out of their escrow. And this is how it happens. If you're lending money, let's say you got 5 or 6 loans out, $50,000 escrow a piece. Now you got $300,000 sitting in that escrow account. Now you can move it to a money market account within that bank, assuming that you can get that money back. You have to make sure you understand the rules of your bank with your money market, and then make sure that you can move it in and out of that money market without any type of penalty, or sometimes you get caught in there for at least 3 months or whatever it is. So you have to understand that money market, but you absolutely cannot go and lend the money out of the escrow account. If you're doing enough loans, you'll find that you have a rather large escrow account that sits in your bank. And it's, first of all, over a couple $100,000, you probably want to split that up in today's environment, which is something that I did when SVB, when Silicon Valley Bank went belly up about a year ago now, went belly up. I certainly switched those escrow accounts so they were in different banks because they exceeded that threshold. But you cannot lend it a second time, right? Because that money is already lent out. And what I suspect is happening with some people is that they are beginning to make a loan with that money a second time. That will blow up your yield in a good way, right? You're lending money. If you can lend the money twice and you were already earning 30%, now you're earning 60%. But I would tell you, this is a big no-no. That's not your money. You can't lend it out. You will get in trouble for doing that, particularly if you run out of money in that escrow because things happen and closings don't happen when they're supposed to happen. And then all of a sudden you don't have money to release on a construction draw. That can be very damaging, and you could be liable from that from your borrower. So I encourage you, keep a separate escrow account. And if you want to make a nickel or make a dime, you can put it in that money market, assuming that you understand all the rules to that money market. But you cannot lend that money out a second time. And maybe some people just don't know that they just see the money and they assume that they can do that. That's called double dipping, and it's a real no-no. And I would highly encourage you that if you're hearing me right now and you are doing that, that you stop doing that, because it will get you in trouble if anybody ever finds out about that. So anyway, there it is. That's all I got. The 10-year is going to go up and down. We got to get China and Japan and Canada to stop selling all those 10 years, and we can maybe get that yield to go down. If we can get that yield to go down, then we can probably get Powell to hit us up a double or triple an interest rate lowering, and then maybe we can get back to the 5%. And I do think that's a feasible plan in the next 12 months to get back to that 5%. I do think it's possible that we're going to get there, but it's going to be a ride on the way. So, anyway, pay attention to that 10-year. If you're interested in learning more about lending and how I lend, just go to my website, richlennon.com, and then download the Smarter Wealth Blueprint. I lay it out really clear. I think it's a pretty good blueprint, and it tells you exactly what I'm doing, how I'm lending my money. All right, I'm out. I went 10 minutes. How'd that happen? Okay, tomorrow I'm going to try to solve it so that I can stream on multiple channels now instead of just this one. I thought I had it fixed, but I'm a Gen X guy, and I got Gen X problems. All right, everybody have a great one.